All right, guys. Thank you all for coming. McCain Group is sponsoring the Quality and Requirements track today. We're pleased to have you here, and we're certainly excited for Barbara Burkholder. She's software quality management, she's going to present on software quality management. It's more than testing. And she's currently a QA manager in the global claims and operations technology space with AIG here in Charlotte, right?
Yes.
All right. She is a quality assurance test management expert who has been in the profession longer than most testers have been on the planet.
Yep.
She got her start in testing shortly after completing a client installation, returning to the office and asking, "Does anyone look at this before it goes out the door?" Barbara earned her MBA from Queen's University of Charlotte to supplement her bachelor's in music education, and has prepared for many certifications, CBCP, CISA, CSQA, ITIL, and PMP among them. She also has experience as a Scrum Master and has worked with companies ranging in size from startup to Fortune 100. When not working, traveling, or training for triathlons, Barbara spends her spare time with her many canine, equine, right?
Equine, that's horses.
Jeez Louise. Feline and human friends. Thought I said it wrong for a second. Everybody put your hands together for Barbara Burkholder.
And we'll get this right out in the open. I am officially the crazy cat lady. Thank you very much. We're a small group, so be prepared. I'm probably going to ask you to participate.
Move on. Can you get closer?
Yeah, let's get closer. Let's get closer. Let's make this more comfortable since we're a small group. Like maybe in this. Come on now. How many of you are QA professionals with the PMP? Like, do you have QA certifications, or are you guys all project managers? Project managers?
Business analysts.
Pardon me?
Business analysts.
Business analysts. Well, then you're probably one of the ones that if you have a business analyst certification, this is a twofer. You get, yay. You get to use the PDUs on both certifications. Format for today. Obviously, I asked you to come a little closer because I'd like to keep it casual. I do have slides prepared. You can go to the next one. I forgot the beep. Are you guys old enough to remember the film strips in elementary school? And everyone would say beep. So when I do that, that's cute. Historical context, some food for thought. I'd like to have lots of discussion. There are no right answers, there's no wrong answers. We're just going to talk about different things, try to meld your experience with some of the experience that I've had in the testing space. You will quickly notice that I am not one of these regular speakers on the circuit. Do not compare me to your keynotes. I heard that they were wonderful. I missed them, sorry. I do know about quality assurance and testing though. I have been reading about it, thinking about it, practicing it for over 30 years. And yes, I'm dating myself again. The good news to being able to date yourself is that I'm getting close to retirement too. Today's topics. Obviously, we'll be talking about quality. One of the things that we're going to discover in this conversation is that it's not as easy to talk about as you might think. We're going to break down a definition of quality into a couple of different components and then talk about things that project managers like, money, the triple constraint, all that kind of stuff. And we'll be talking about who owns quality. Are all of you involved in technology projects, software projects, or any in manufacturing? All technology. Believe it or not, everything that we talk about today really does even apply to manufacturing. So it would cross over. Quality management. Definition up here on the board. Can you all see that pretty clearly? Then I don't need to read it to you. Take a second, scan through that. Something that stands out to me in this definition, you see the word discipline a couple of times, used as both a noun and a verb. What are some of the other words that pop out at you?
Sure.
Sure. Any others?
Solid understanding.
Solid understanding, okay. I had a pen here somewhere.
Expectations.
Expectations.
The right quality. I'm not sure what that means.
Ah. The other thing I noticed was like market commitments, customer market commitments, business performance. I mean, we're hitting all the things that have to do with a product, be it software or a manufactured product. We're going to take the rest of this afternoon, next hour, to examine some of the components in here, particularly the quality assurance and the quality control aspects.
And there is a difference.
There is.
I'm so sorry, that's one of my pet peeves. I get people who say they do one when they're doing the other.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. Then you're right there with me. We're on the same wavelength. What is quality? Before we go over a definition, does anybody want to take a stab at it? What do you think quality is?
Characteristics of a product that meet its design goals, which are supposed to meet its requirement goals, which are supposed to meet its needs of the customer.
Anybody want to add to that or have a different opinion?
I can rephrase it. Does it do what it's supposed to?
The level at which it does what it's meant to do.
Standard.
To the level at which customers' expectations are met.
All of those answers are correct. Just remember, there are no right or wrong answers, so everything's correct today. Let's go to the next slide. In the world of Google, if you look up quality, you get an interesting definition. I mean, this is straight out of what it was showing as quality. Does that tell you anything? Not really. I always thought that one of the rules of a definition was that you couldn't use the word that you were defining in the definition. That's exactly what this definition is. They're in there. The other thing that I find about this is because it's not very clear, it's ambiguous, and ambiguity is the nemesis of quality professionals. Our BA is nodding her head, yes. Let's go to the next one. A guy named David Garvin wrote a book, Managing Quality, that I stumbled across. And he takes 5 approaches to, he calls it defining quality. It's a way of thinking about quality, taking 5 different approaches. The first one, the transcendental view, or the transcendent approach. You might equate this to Plato and his definition of beauty. It's innate. It's hard to define. You can't do it precisely. We recognize it through experience. That can be quality.
I mean, that's kind of what I think about when I was trying to define it. You know,
It's like,
it
you
kinda
know
means-
it when you see it.
Right, and you know the meaning, you know what it means, but it's hard to articulate.
Sorry, I'm struggling to keep
You're
my mouth
struggling.
shut.
Well, there's another approach. There's the product-based approach. It's very precise and measurable. Example, I'm going to the store to buy some ice cream. I want to get really good ice cream. I'm going to look at the butterfat content. It's measurable. So in my mind, a lot of butterfat equates to quality ice cream. You may not agree with me, but that's one way of looking at it. Or a Persian rug. The quality of a Persian rug is often measured in the number of knots that are in the rug. So it's really focusing on the product itself and measuring things in the product. Yes?
But that's grade versus quality.
Not necessarily. Remember, this is a way to think about quality. The one that many of us are comfortable with is the user-based view, because that's us, right? This is the consumer preferences, the demand side of the supply and demand equation. This is in the eye of the beholder, but it's going to be different for every person. Just because it's preferable to you doesn't mean it's a quality product to you. We're still on the same slide. I had to do 2 pages. Manufacturing based. Those of us in technology, this is where we live. In the world of manufacturing. Even though we're building software, it's manufacturing something. It's the engineering approach to things. Deviation from design or specification implies a reduction in quality. Excellence is equated with meeting specifications and making it right the first time. When we think about quality products, and again, I'm using tangible things, not software, think of a Mercedes and a Chevette. From a manufacturing point of view, they're probably both meeting their specifications, meeting their requirements, they're quality products. We probably, though, think the Mercedes is more quality, but what's that? That's that either user-based view or that transcendent view. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful car, right? And then there's the value-based approach. Cost, price, all right. Am I willing to pay what it takes to make this a good product? Performance at an acceptable price or conformance at an acceptable cost? That's where the bean counters get involved. Do we really want to spend $15 million on a project to do this software upgrade? Is it worth it? What's our payback? What's our ROI? Is it worth it? Exercise number 1. And this is why I want you to get closer together. And I was going to do small groups, but we are a small group. So let's just throw it out there. And since we're all in technology and software projects, think about a project you're working on. And think about the software development lifecycle. Which stakeholders on that project team look at quality in these different ways? What do they come to the table with as their bias, as a way of defining quality? What does the business user usually come up with?
Here's where I'm at. We have so many cross disciplines on this project. I bet someone has one of those views, and that's the issue, is everyone has a different view of it. Because I'm sitting here in my head and I'm thinking, I know who has that view, I know who has that view. So when it comes to what the deliverables should look like and people signing off, I had a hard time getting them to sign up on the charter. because they could not come to grips with what the product really should be in an acceptable state. So this is a really good discussion, because I really didn't know what to do. I had to go get, you know, the sponsor to come in and say, you know, what are the expectations, because people had so many different biases.
And many times the quality manager on the project ends up or should be the referee, you know, trying
Yeah, but they
to.
had their view wasn't even, I'm trying to figure out what view they had.
Probably in the manufacturing world.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna do a side note here. This is one of the things that I think we've done ourselves a disservice as quality professionals, is because we've gotten so regimented, and it's got to be this way, and it's got to be measured this way, and we're counting things, and have you ever stepped back and looked at the overall picture? We're focused on measuring and testing the interstate highway system, but we forget to take the side roads and discover that maybe the bridge is out over there and you're following it. So there's good and bad to that.
But isn't that why we have several phases of testing? UAT, for instance, you know, in software, the failure, I think, in UAT is, here's the software engineers, when they tested in UAT, when it was tested against design and what they call QA, which is really QC, we give the users the scripts and say, run it yourself, and that'll prove to you it works. When really what we should do is say, here's the product, do whatever you want. Tell us if
Exactly.
it's what you want.
Yeah, but again, it's because we're so measurement happy.
But we measure.
We need to measure the users.
In QC, I
Yeah.
want measurements. In unit testing, I want measurements. In UAT, I just want a thumbs up.
Mhm.
So different phases of testing typically, I thought, were designed to address
They are.
all different perspectives.
They are, but our drive, at least in my experience, our drive to be able to measure everything we do is at the detriment of letting the users be creative with the software.
My favorite tester, her first test was on the keyboard.
That's called the shoe test. It's comparable to taking your shoe off and going bang, 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 bang on the keyboard, yeah.
And it's as legitimate a test as anything I
It
can
is,
come up with.
it is. There's the random click test where you just go around the screen. Yeah, there's all kinds of creative things that you can do with great software, but it's not necessarily in the script. It's, there's no requirement that says it has to be armed against, shoe-proof. Yeah, I think that's one of the problems. Do you see any value in knowing that quality is viewed or can be viewed in so many different ways? If you think about how you're planning your project and engaging the stakeholders, kind of
I
figuring
guess
out.
to
what
understand where
this
they're
is.
trying to come from, you can speak to their view.
Mhm.
These requirements.
We still haven't defined quality yet, though, have we? We're still working on that. We can go to the next slide. There are a bunch of organizations. These are just some random ones I found on the internet and trying to figure out, well, how would they're quality organizations, how do they define quality? The things that I noticed is, even in their definitions, they're telling you it's hard to define. Different people interpret quality differently. Well,
Thank you.
no kidding. They sometimes do this, they sometimes do that. They call it fitness for use. Well, that's kind of ambiguous, isn't it?
But is that because of the nature of the thing, or the fact that we're all doing different things and calling it quality?
I think it's the nature of the fact that quality itself is ambiguous. It's an ambiguous word. It's very personal in many cases, and it also depends on what context you're in as to whether it's quality or not. So let's go to the next one. Ilities. We're going to talk about attributes of quality. It's going to help us think about quality in a little more structured way. And I think we already, I'm going to quote Garvin again, and we've pretty much come to this conclusion. Quality is a complex and multifaceted concept. It is also a great source of confusion. Managers, particularly those in different functions, frequently fail to communicate precisely what they mean by the term. You've experienced that. The result is often endless debate and an inability to show real progress on the quality front. So let's talk about ilities. The reason we call these ilities is attributes of quality often end in ility. Maintainability, flexibility, testability, usability, reliability, interoperability, portability, ility. There are some other words randomly thrown in there. There are more than just those words. Start with that.
Oops, you passed it back.
Too bad. Too many. Keep the extra, keep your friends, family, put in Christmas cards. A lot of these words in the technology space we're familiar with, and a lot of them we don't even think about when it comes to technology. But they're all ways of applying attributes to quality. I have another exercise plan. And since we're a small group, I'm going to do this one at a time. Who wants to go first? Okay, pick something out of the bag. All right. Look at that product. What attributes do you think would be important to somebody who's determining whether that's a quality product or not? You can use words from your list. You can make up your own if you want to.
Well, adaptability is the first thing I thought, and then I see it on this list too. For people that have hand pain, I want to make sure this was easy for them to use it if they were having hand pain.
Any others come to mind? That could apply to software too, adaptability.
Reliable. Want to know, like it's plastic, is it going to break if I drop it on the floor? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who wants to try another product? I think it really interesting.
Sure.
You can open it up.
Okay.
All right, so what attribute are you dealing with right now?
Accessibility.
There you go. I haven't looked at this in a long time.
So our place, the Cosmos. Or I guess, what am I evaluating? The tube
The
or
quality.
the
Well,
products
that's the
within?
product.
Okay.
This came as a whole package. It was a gift to me.
It's going to be by you a star.
Yes. There is a star named after me.
I saw it the other night.
Did you?
It was up there.
Yeah. Had a big bee on it, didn't it? So what kind of attributes go with a product like that?
The packaging, usability wise, this is kind of awkward with money rolled up.
Of course, it's been rolled up like that for a few years.
Right, right.
And it looks like you.
I guess how sturdy the product is to shipping, including the tube. I guess the robustness on this sheet.
Yeah, you hit on some good ones. Things that, like, is accuracy on the list?
What's that?
Yeah. Like accuracy, did they spell my name right? Yeah,
But is
that was,
that the product?
the product is actually to get me to buy something else.
That's the evidence of the product.
That's true.
It's the user manual. It's not a product.
Here, what quality attributes go with this?
Usability.
It's integrity.
Marketability.
There, okay.
Because it's one of those things that they're pretty much all the same. Yet,
It's a commodity, yeah.
commodity, yet the marketability is what differentiates the $4 roll from the 4-cent roll. Especially nowadays, you've got disposability, sustainability, recyclability.
I don't even know if that's on the list. Is biodegradability on the list? That would be an ability that applies to toilet paper. Durability.
Yeah, durability.
Yeah, how durable do you want your toilet paper to be?
Looking for
Have a half-life,
solubility,
like-
don't see it.
Chunks of wood.
Solubility? Yeah.
The paper we had in kindergarten, they would draw around the chunks of wood.
Yep, building cleanability.
Reusability.
Add it to the list. Okay, so you guys get the idea of what we're talking about attributes. You can do the same thing with software. And this is where, if you have a good test strategy or a good test plan, you decide in advance which quality attributes are important for your project. You define those in your plan so that everybody has a common definition. Right? That's what'll make up a good test plan. Now, a lot of times, how many times have you actually gone back and reread the test plan when you're in UAT? Sometimes to look at the entry-exit criteria, but have you really looked at the whole thing? The importance, the main importance of a test plan is the act of thinking through everything. Thinking through it, defining things, coming up with a common vocabulary for all the stakeholders on the teams. And that's why half the world has to approve it before it goes anywhere. The idea is that if you're approving it, you've read it.
You're saying that once we get to the test groups, we don't usually go back up the pipe, we got what we wanted, let's just use it.
Pretty much, yeah. A lot of folks, I mean, you just move on, you know, it's there. But by that point in the project, you should have developed that common vocabulary. Sometimes it's hard to get your business users on board, but you're like herding cats, and being a crazy cat lady, I know about herding cats. All right, we can go to the next slide. So we've attempted to define quality. We still don't really have a hard definition, but what we do know is that there are ways to define it, approaches, ways to think about it, attributes that'll help you get everybody on the same page. So what's the difference between going back to that definition that we had at the beginning? It said that the underlying theory and basic principles to quality management were quality assurance and quality control. So what are they? Let's take a look at quality assurance. Another definition, yay! planned and systematic pattern of all actions necessary to provide adequate confidence that an item or product conforms to established technical requirements. Set of activities designed to evaluate the process. Again, contrasts with quality control. What this is telling us is that the QA part of quality management is focusing on process standards and compliance. In many large organizations, large companies, the QA organization is even separate from testing. And their function is to come up with that set of process standards, procedures that apply to all projects across the board, not just one thing. Those separate organizations show up as with names in their organization title, with compliance in there, IT audit. You'll have governance, change management, configuration management, release management. They're all helping define processes that usher the project and its deliverables to where it needs to go. So they're quality disciplines from the quality assurance side of the house. Process focus on how to do things. And oftentimes tools fall into this space too, because the tools help you do the how. It's applied across the project portfolio. You can go to the next one. Organizational quality standards. That's what QA does. Now remember, it'll show up with different names sometimes. Doesn't release management put standards across the organization? Doesn't IT audit put some standards across the organization? You guys are all project managers. Triple constraint. Scope, time, cost, right? I've seen it oftentimes where they'll put scope with quality. It's in the middle. Everything you do here, your quality assurance team affects things, but everything that you do for your processes that affect scope, time, cost, affect your quality as well. Right? And the way to get that quality piece in the middle to achieve the attributes that we're after in our product, well-defined processes can help us get there. You don't have, you reduce the risk of missing steps in doing something, or people on the team not knowing what they're supposed to do or how they're supposed to do things. Let's compare that with quality control. To your point, in most places I've ever worked, they call it the QA team. Well, it's part of the quality management organization, but it's really quality control. It's focusing on the what of the project. QA tells you how to do your job, but QC is what we're actually doing for the project.
Verifies that you've done it.
Yes, they're the checkers. Inspector 12. You know, screw to the loom. Inspector 12. And there's all kinds of different things that can be done. One of the challenges that I'm sure you guys see within a project team is maybe an us versus them thing between developers and testers. which is sad, because your most successful projects are when they recognize that, hey, we're working on this together. Because a developer needs a tester. They're not going to call their own baby ugly. It just doesn't happen. And a good tester recognizes that partnership and tries to develop that. So there's some relationship management in here. The other thing that a good tester recognizes is that it doesn't matter to them, you know, I solved the problem. No, tester, you may not have solved the problem. You may have, but you may not have. What's important to the tester is that I get the problem solved. Okay, so this is focusing on the how. And when you have a tester that kind of goes, yes, I found a really good bug. They don't mean to be pointing fingers at the developer or whatever. It just validates their being, their reason for being. I have finally added value to the product. Yeah, I found something good. So don't take the celebration as necessarily a bad thing.
This might not sound too nice, but it's kind of like the drug dogs. They put, you know, they plant someone out there so the dog can find the drug
Yeah.
and validate it. You know,
Yeah.
yes.
Another side note, when I was an active tester, I actually ran into an error message in a product that said, Barbara, you shouldn't be doing this. So if you're in this part of the code, you're not following instructions. And it's like, oh, I like that customized error message just for me. So they gave me something to find, and I found it. So I passed
The
it.
tester finds it from the customer.
Yep.
Yep.
When I think about quality control, and you have QA managers and you have a testing team, and in our new world of the onshore, offshore model, especially in large corporations, the QA manager is typically the employee of the company, and the test team is Cognizant or Infosys or Capgemini or Tata or whoever it is, and they have peers. So the way I see things often working is that the first bullet is your QA manager, who's straddling that space between process and testing. But their job is to make sure the testers are doing things the way they're supposed to be doing it. And then you've got the testers who are down here doing the two basic approaches, quality reviews, peer reviews, audits. It would be reading the requirements document and trying to find those ambiguities before we've ever even gone into coding or whatever. The testers are good at doing that kind of thing. Can I test it? It's one of your abilities, it's testability. And then software measurement and assessment, that's the testing. Ironically, that piece, the testing, makes up about 20% of what your testing organization does. 80% of the time they're getting ready, they're reading requirements, they're writing their test cases, they're planning, they're getting, partnering with the environment organization to get to that 20% that everybody all of a sudden puts a spotlight on and says measure, 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 measure. We can go to the next one. V model, how many of you have seen this? No? This model is one that was very often associated with waterfall methodology, because if you look at it and take the V away, it looks like a waterfall flow. Even in the world of Agile, we still do all of these things. We just may do it in a different way. But what I like to show about this model is it visually demonstrates the relationship between the requirements and the test that validates that requirement. So even in the world of Agile, you're doing the same kinds of things. Somebody's writing a requirement, and the tester is working with that person to write the validation strategy on the story, and then they execute the test. It's just that instead of in an 18-month cycle, it's done in 2 weeks. Or 4 weeks, or whatever your iteration is, depending on which agile methodology you're using. But I really like this, it visually depicts that relationship, what each deliverable is. Skeptic? Come on.
No, I've never seen this before, but you just graphically represented my whole philosophy in one picture. That I spend days and weeks and months talking to everybody on my project who isn't involved with quality control, to get them to believe that testing and the tests that are defined should be given to the engineers who are coding. It's an open book test.
Absolutely. I used to,
It's a two-way street. That's why I'm glad you have arrows going left.
yeah, it goes all ways. If you're writing the tests, well, why not give them to the developers before they start testing? Yeah.
It also tests the requirements to make
It
sure that
does.
they're testable and that they understood what the requirement meant.
Right, and then the other thing that happens is if the developer has written some code based on a requirement that they have interpreted differently than the tester did, hello, let's talk about it.
You could both be right.
Yeah, we have an ambiguity, so you need to discuss it.
Barbara actually saw that in some enterprise level software that they're testing. And really, at the end of the day, they both saw it correctly, but it was just, people couldn't accept that.
Ah,
But you're exactly right, and so, you know, it was up to the PMO to say, let's have some conversation, because it was a major catch. I mean, this software involves money, moving people's money. So when you're moving payroll and moving money, it gets ugly. And so the developer caught something, but the tester caught it first. And so they went back to the requirement, and the developer saw it totally different, and the person who wrote the script saw it totally different. So really, we had 3 views on one glitch.
yeah.
And we really wound up bringing in a business analyst, which was, you know, trying to figure out the LOB's role.
Exactly, and what
And had
did you
conversation.
really mean by this?
We sure did, and I thought that was the best thing we could have ever done, is to just have some intelligent conversation on, what are you seeing, and why are you seeing that?
Mhm.
But that would have never happened had the tester never caught it. So I asked them, I said, well, so why don't you guys give the developers all of the requirements that you know, let them take a look at it, because it was a whole new team
Mhm.
of developers. I said, why don't you give them the requirements so we can see what's going on before this happens? Because it slowed everything down, it came to a stop.
Not good for a project.
It wasn't, and so the deadline was missed, but I think I've not ever seen that.
There's all different visuals out there. You'll see different phases because it gets modified from company to company as to what they actually do. There's all variations
Like I
of it.
say, our company's small, so we really don't have QA like structure or whatever. So our business analysts do almost all the tests, they do all the testing. So-
Well, and I worked in a small company where as the QA team, we basically did all of the release management, we did, you know, all of the quality disciplines. And I don't think we even had business analysts. We worked directly with the customers and, I guess they were business analysts, they called them system analysts, but they were really business analysts, trying to put things together.
It's like our, if you want to use it in this diagram, our business users really don't do any testing. It's all the business analysts who do all the testing, and then once they say it's okay, the users are just not, generally, they're just good doers, if you want to use good words. And then here, I guess when I'm a little bit, maybe I'm misunderstanding what's going on, but like in this picture, how does the QA analyst, like, know all the stuff to test from the business analyst? I guess I'm missing that part. Because that means to me, like, the business analyst is writing all the requirements and all that stuff. How does the QA person know that knowledge of what the business analyst knows?
Because it's documented. They read it. And then the other thing that happens, especially if you can keep your teams together for any length of time, they start understanding the application and how it's supposed to work. You know, in this day and age, we, you know, roll people off and roll people on and nobody.
That's precisely why the top center, for example, after the requirements are written, the QA analyst, and I agree with that title, verifies and starts writing essentially a test plan from the requirements, and that feeds into the system design alongside the requirements. And if the systems analyst sees a discrepancy, then there's either poorly written requirements or something didn't get communicated well, so it's a double check. That's why.
They didn't get done in that environment.
That's why
It just
every-
seems to take forever.
Which is why, for example, when you're reviewing requirements, the systems analyst, or in our case, the architect, and possibly the developer, need to be in that review and approval, but so does QA.
Exactly.
QA. And the lead QC person probably
Mhm.
needs to be in everything, just to make sure that, because they know that, you know, stuff rolls downhill.
And that's a
Everybody knows
battle that I have fought, not so much in the last few years, but I'd say for at least, you know, 20 some odd years of my 30+ year career in testing, is convincing people that QA and testing need to be at the table at the beginning of the project. And everybody look at you and say, well, why? You're not testing until, okay, you're gonna put me in a room and sit me down in front of a computer, and now I'm supposed to magically know everything I need to know about testing this product.
Plus the
Yeah, it's been a
perspective
battle.
you offer them. I'm selfish, I started in software and went up to project management, or down to project management. But the testers offer a practical perspective that none of us engineers ever think about. We think about, wouldn't it be cool to build this? We never think about having to use it.
Mhm.
Testers and BAs, different, to me, different sides of the same coin. They represent the user.
Go back to those 5 ways of looking at quality. They take a different view.
Oh, yeah.
Barbara, one to your points. And your name is?
Jeff.
Jeff, I just feel like calling people, hey, you.
Hey,
So
you.
Jeff,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Jeff had a good point. In another project I was working in with another client, he is so right. So when I got there, I had to do my as-is, where's everything? I said, so where are the QA and QC folks? And they said, oh, they'll come later. And I said, well, I've already invited them. And so when they walked in, the first thing the QA person, sharp, oh my gosh, she said, where's the data architect map?
Oh, yeah.
And nobody thought about that. And the problem with that is that data was going to green computers offshore, and it was very HIPAA sensitive information. It would have been a hot mess if that person not been in there and the QA person not asked that one question, because that's part of the, you know, that's part of their, everything that they do. And they asked for that one map to audit that map against what they were trying to do with this software, and everybody just went south.
Oops.
So that's a good point, you have to bring them in early.
So we talked about quality assurance, quality control. The thing that shoots out of the quality management process, everybody's favorite. Next slide. Defects. Defects. Defect data has lots of information in it. Let's go to the next slide. I'm sure you've heard this, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. But I'm sure you've also heard you get what you measure. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about those too. When I was putting this slide together, I had just read this article that I have highlighted down here at the bottom. I loved it because in some ways it's a bit heretical, where she's saying, chill, folks, we don't need to measure everything. You don't have to do that. We're wasting a lot of time measuring things. I also think that's part of what Agile's about too, is getting away from over documenting things. Interestingly enough, when it comes to quality, have you ever heard the name W. Edwards Deming? Okay, total quality management. And he's really big in concepts of statistical process control for manufacturing, and he's the guy that got the Japanese to make really good cars. Look how far ahead they were. Now, he came from Iowa. He grew up on a chicken farm in Iowa and had to go to Japan in the 1950s to get anybody to listen to him about his ideas about quality. And one of his quotes is, "In God we trust, all others must bring data." On the flip side, here's another Deming quote. "One of the 7 deadly diseases of management is running a company on visible figures alone." And he also goes on to say, "The most important things cannot be measured." Right. So a little bit about the measure versus manage. And then you get what you measure. How many have heard of the Hawthorne effect? It was basically a study at the Hawthorne Electric Company. The study was done in the 20s and the 30s, but the data didn't get analyzed until the 50s. Basically what the effect is, if somebody comes in to look at what you're doing every day in your job, all of a sudden you do it better because they're watching you. The attention makes you do it better. So the Hawthorne effect is, you put focus on it, it gets better. You get what you're looking at. Okay? So let's go to the next slide. The thing about any kind of data analysis, and this includes defects, it's not always obvious what it's telling you. It's not easy. And you have to take local circumstances or context into account. If I were to throw out, we found 1,000 defects on this project. Does that tell you anything? Is that good or is that bad?
It's good.
Yeah.
It could be a million.
How many?
Oh, I mean,
What's your relationship to
Right.
how many, is that 1% or is that 100%?
There's no
Yeah.
context.
There's no context. All right. We executed all the test cases. How many did you have? 2? 2,000? So the context makes a difference. I'm sure, being project managers, you've all seen a defect report. They tell you how many they found today, how many they closed today, what the severity is, what the priority is, blah, 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 blah. Here's our exercise number 3, which we're going to do as a small group, as a small group. What else do you think you can data mine out of your defect data?
We found out I don't know, who was our happy tester. She found more things than anyone.
So why do you describe her as a happy tester?
She really did like, when I found, and hunted her down, she really liked doing her job.
Okay, so she was a happy,
Yeah, she went at it tooth and nail. She was looking for every little thing, she even found this misspelled word in one of the screens. But what was good about that is that she was thorough. And I came to trust her because I knew if I gave her a script, she wasn't gonna wait till 5 o'clock in the afternoon and the deadline was 6 to do it and rush through it.
so how did the defect tell you that she was the,
Because we tracked, in HP, we actually had a field where we put their names in as well. So we knew who that person was, and we could run the defects. And what was interesting, we actually had tested that never had any defects. I couldn't imagine.
And you can find a million spelling defects, but can they find a process defect?
She was good. I mean, she found stuff that, and I think those reports, if you use your system, and it's because we really made an effort to use, we brought our thoughts to the systems level. We didn't dummy the system down to our pitiful little processes. The system worked. So the reports were just excellent at telling us how fast we were closing them, what days we were finding them. Seems like some days we found more than others. Who were the happy testers, who found nothing.
Did you use your data to also pinpoint which areas of the application might be more problematic than others?
Yeah, we figured out the test environment. We actually created a second report called Test Nuances. It's just something with the software. And then we had another report we created out of that called the test environment. We knew which things were inherent of that environment. We had to figure out why. And we found out we had too many different versions of Windows. So,
What other kind of things would you like to get out of your data?
Well, what you can get out, especially in manufacturing, which I'm only hypothesizing, are things, you're digging into root cause analysis and you can find where in your process, you might find that some machinery that's being used to make your product from a specific vendor is failing, et cetera, et cetera. You can figure out where in your whole process, all the way back to the business or the customers that you interviewed for requirements, where you need to improve your process. But that's QA, so that's not, so QC feeds QA.
It does. It's all part of that quality umbrella.
but I think Jeff's point, when we looked at those reports, we actually, when we realized the test environment was part of the issue, we could trace it back to the vendor. Because we had several bills.
So you can look at your data to determine that. You can look at environment. You can look at process gaps when you do your root cause analysis out of that data. You find the tester that's not necessarily productive because that's what, when you mentioned the person was a happy tester, maybe your unproductive tester was the happy path tester. They never find anything because they only take the happy path, or they're not doing anything.
Yeah, we started measuring defect density, which is very frustrating. But what I find interesting is how many false positives do you have, which are either environmental issues or functioning as designed, and where are those coming from? The environmental ones I get, it's kind of stuff, whatever. But functioning as designed is that we didn't state the requirement correctly, it wasn't documented,
That ends up
System
being
design.
one of those circular things that as soon as that shows up, functioning as designed,
Right.
if the tester, most processes, if the developer says, no, this is functioning as designed, send it back to the tester. Well, at that point, I think, all right, you guys need to talk. Why do you think it's functioning as designed? Why do you think it's a defect? And get the business analyst involved. What is it? really?
Functioning as designed, but not as required.
That's the discussion.
Yeah, it's functioning as coded.
Right. But
And the design.
in many cases,
But-
yeah.
But is
in
the
some
design in
cases,
line with the requirement?
That's the way it's supposed to function. And, we see it both sides, misinterpreted from the requirement side or the tester didn't understand it. What
I
the
see
desired
more of
output
that
is.
when you get to, especially in the older style waterfall methodology, when you get to the users. Well, I know that's what I said, but that was 18 months ago, that's not what I want now.
That's- yeah.
Yeah.
Change management.
Yes.
That's way too late.
Change control. So, let's go to the next slide. Still about defects. You can get information, are we ready to ship? Up front, you have to have what your parameters are. But if you just say, oh, are we ready to ship? Oh, we're down to a few defects. Yeah, does that give you enough information? Oh, we've got 3 sub 1s. The system, crashes every 12 hours, something like that. Yeah, we're not ready to ship. Can we improve for the next time? Root cause analysis, was our testing effective? Unfortunately, when you start getting into the defect data, it also gets very personal. You need to put on your psychology hat to dealing with this. Dealing with the tester that didn't find any defects, pointing the finger at the person. Or pointing the finger at the developer whose code has the most defects in it. You know, again, it's gotta be delivered what, nicely. Take the context in mind. Maybe that developer was working on a particularly nasty piece of spaghetti code that is just error prone.
Yeah, I mean, just having the defect created, regardless of whether it's a real problem or not, is a problem. Because somebody did not do something or understand something clearly.
The other thing that's a pitfall, let's go to the next slide. And I'm against doing this, using defect data as a productivity measure. I have been
Drive the
places where
behavior
they
you want.
say, you tester, I expect you to find 20 defects a day. We're back to you will get what you measure. If that tester's productivity is being measured on finding 20 defects a day, they will write 20 defect records.
Taken to the, flip it over, rewarding people for finding defects.
Yes.
And rewarding people for fixing defects. Once worked at a location where they got $20 for finding a bug, programmers got $20 for fixing a bug. Guess what happened?
You'd find a lot of bugs that needed to be fixed.
Collusion, they would put in bugs to be found and fixed.
Or the arsonist would become a firefighter.
Well, that's one of my pet peeves in business in general, is that the people that are the firefighters are usually the ones that are created to fire in the first place. And they get the bonuses and the recognition and whatever. So this is the you get what you measure aspect of things. Developer, you need to write 1,000 lines of code every day. Yeah, okay, you're gonna get 1,000 lines of code. Are they any good?
Right.
Yeah, who cares? Some things that happen are counterintuitive. This last one I saw. You may think that you've written some really good code. You put out a new release, and all of a sudden your help desk calls go up. Well, your users may have become so accustomed to really good software that every little thing that goes wrong, they're going to call the help desk. That's not necessarily a ding on the quality of your product. So you have to be careful how you interpret your data relative to defects. They don't want to work around the fault. I'm going to call the help desk. You need to fix this. I know there's an easy workaround, but you need to fix this. It happens. Now we're going to go on to dollars and cents.
So before we do
Yeah,
that, I
okay.
don't know if you're going to touch on it later or not, but do you have any defect metrics that you find to be effective, or?
I prefer the ones that when you're measuring whether the test team was effective or not, is your defect leakage rate into production.
Yeah.
What is that?
Defect leakage into production.
Defect leakage?
Leakage is the term, like it leaked out of this phase
So
of testing.
production incidents that, found in production due to
Right.
a particular project.
Now, what happens, this is when your
That can be
testers get all crazy about it.
finger pointing
because-
as well.
Yeah, that's finger pointing too, yeah. It becomes very political.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the best way to measure the effectiveness of the testing effort. Now,
Right.
there are many
Mentioned
reasons why the
beforehand.
testing effort may not have been effective.
Right. Yep.
Didn't have enough people, didn't have enough time, bugs,
Weren't involved in the
changes up
project
to the
early enough.
end,
Yep.
yeah, so,
That never
again, it's,
They
no.
have plenty of time.
Yeah. Yeah, right now, the project I'm working on, I get this request to approve code deployment. I'm like, I thought we were in a code freeze. Well, okay. So I'm working in an organization that we now have code slushes. They're not freezes.
I like that term.
Code slush. Cost of quality. I actually call it the cost of poor quality. I think it's wrong to think of it as the cost of quality. There's actually a book out there written a number of years ago. Quality is free. It really is free. If you do it right, it's free. So everything that's costing us money is because we're not doing it right. And that would be poor quality. And all of these things go into it. The tangible costs, I even say that the tangible costs of quality, you know, that get your spreadsheet and your project costs and your test team is costing you $1.2 million, whatever. Would you need the test team if everything was perfect? So even the test team exists as a cost of poor quality.
I still want the testing.
You still want them, you still want to pay for it.
Even if they're- even if
It's like
they're perfect.
insurance,
Yeah, yeah.
it's insurance. On my little notes here, I said, let's think about some current events. Volkswagen.
Well,
Could that be cast as a quality issue?
That's poor quality, that's more of like ethical, what they talk about.
Exactly. Yeah.
They-
So here, Volkswagen's in the news for this terrible thing they did. They met all their requirements. It worked.
Exactly
It
as
worked.
that.
So is that a quality product? It's just your food for thought. Let's go on. I'm down to my last 10 minutes. So, how are quality managers like project managers? You'd be surprised how similar our roles are. Let's go to the next slide. I've taken an example, testing life cycle and a software development life cycle. So the software development, across the top. That should be very familiar to you. And then there's the testing, and there's some details associated with testing. You can someday read this at your leisure. But you'll notice that our stuff maps throughout the process. You can look at it this way. Your project manager is managing the delivery part of the project. Your quality manager is managing the testing project. And those two converge into the delivery of a quality product.
They run in parallel from the same start date.
Yes, they do. They do. Let's go on to the next slide. We do a lot of the same things. Strategies, plans, we create an estimate. It feeds into your ultimate project estimate, but we're creating an estimate on what our costs are, our human resources costs, our partnerships that we have to do for other testing services. We schedule things, we assign tasks, we have risks and issues. A lot of it gets bubbled up into the project's risk register. We manage people. We still have that matrix organization, especially with our lovely onshore-offshore model that we have, very matrixed. We maintain relationships with everybody involved in the project, just like the project manager does. That's why you see a lot of QA people are getting their PMPs now. Same kind of activity. And beep. One final thought. Who owns quality?
We all do.
Yay!
Who's accountable?
Hmm?
Who's accountable?
Ah, I think we all are.
I'll contribute to it.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Your
You can go to the next slide.
Your bio in here says how you got started in testing. So what was your role? Were you a project manager when you did the client installation?
No, this was a really small company. We were selling a trust accounting system to small to medium-sized bank trust departments. So it was a very niche business. So I guess in a way you could say I was the project manager because I was the one person from the company who went on site to say, here we are. Here's your software, here's your hardware. set it up, install it, train it, you know, put together the schedule for who was gonna get trained. So it was a small company, we were only 50 people total in our company, so we wore a lot of hats.
So when you delivered and you went back, what did you do differently? Did it change the way you did your job? Did it change the
It
way
created a
you
new
changed
job
your
in the
career?
company. Yeah, I came back, I was called a client support, was my role. And after coming back to the office and saying, does anybody look at this before it goes out the door? No, we just kind of run it on our machines and we package it up and send it with you. Okay. Do you think we should start doing that? And I was told, well, you can do it in your spare time. All right. I finally went to my boss and said, excuse me, there is no spare time. We have so many problems in the field. Your customer service people don't have any spare time to do anything else except deal with problems. So it became my job. And then we actually created a team to do this. So it was an evolution. It took several years. Keep in mind, this is back in the 80s. Nobody even heard of QA back in the 80s. Didn't exist.
Not to the extent it does now.
Yeah, QA didn't really come into its own until everybody got all freaked out about Y2K. Oh, you do realize, don't you, the Y2K problem is going to come back. Yeah. All those systems that were going to be, you know,
Long energy.
they'll be back. Does the QA organization guarantee quality? No. We all know exhaustive testing is impossible. Well, I guess it's not impossible. Nobody wants to pay for it. It's not feasible. I contend that the QA organization, QA, QC, just in general, they exist to provide information for making risk-based decisions. Period.
So you know where it's broken, and you can make the right decisions about what to do with where it's broken.
And I'm going to leave you with one last quote from our friend Deming. The most important things are unknown or unknowable. The factors that have the greatest impact can be quite surprising. He was thinking in terms of earthquakes and typhoons and catastrophic failures, but the same thing applies to a server that goes down. A router that's not working, a load balancer that's screwed up. I mean, it messes up your whole project. So, conclusion in my last 3 minutes. Next slide. QA versus QC. QA is the how, QC is the what. QA is the process, QC is the product. QA prevents, QC corrects. So think about that the next time somebody says, yeah, the QA test team.
No, man, we do, it's the nomenclature.
Yep, it is. It's
Yeah,
generally
you
accepted.
definitely
So in the
think
back
about
of
it
your mind, you're
until
going to
now.
think to yourself,
Yep.
you mean the QC team. All right, next slide. And the other thing I want to leave you with is that it takes, you know, all aspects of it. The delivery team, your quality team, your project management team, your PMO organization. Partnership, collaboration, and the multiple disciplines. It takes all of us to bring this thing together. And the more that we can promote that collaboration, the better off we all are for delivering the product. Avoid using your defect data to point fingers at people. Yeah. Couch it in terms of how can we do things better. And the last slide. More quotes for you. You can read them at your leisure. Thank you for your time. I'm glad we were a small group, I was a little more comfortable.
But isn't it a shame that every time I go to a quality event with my project management peers, it's a small group?
It is.
It's- What is more, well, aside from perhaps communication, what is more important? What do we do that's more important than this?
I would like to think this is like the thing, but.
The most important.
Yeah. So I hope I've left you with some food for thought and more, perhaps more questions than answers. Maybe you'll go out and do some research, do some things, and an appreciation for how quality is a complex little beast to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look at that, look at that, right on my nose. The first couple of times I did a walkthrough, like, my material, I had to, like, cut tons of stuff out.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
so, awards and plenty of goods.
Yay! Today is a good day. I have a goodie bag. I
You need
participated.
toilet paper back?
Oh, yeah, I'll take my toilet. Unless you really need it.